It's hard to express how excited all of us at Bethesda are to be here with you today. We're so grateful you're spending the time, and we know you've waited a long time to finally see Starfield.
Why the fuck would you lead with that? People have been waiting literally years to see Starfield, and the first thing you show us is a barren wasteland of nothingness. Then later on, you go on to show us flashes of these super cool looking places. Why didn't you start with one of those? I don't know, man. Something stinks. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry I've been away for 4 weeks. I'm finally back, and I'm so fucking happy to be back. Actually, not currently. I'm red fucking hot. Like, it is absolutely sweltering outside.
What the fuck is that?
And I am drenched in sweat, but that is my dedication to the cause. So yeah, I've been off doing band stuff for the last 4 weeks, playing gigs, having a really amazing time with that side of my life, and yeah, it's just been really, really cool. Now I'm back, I'm here, I'm on it with video game therapy, so yeah, stuck with me. So yeah, Starfield, we finally got kind of an in-depth-ish look at what gameplay looks like, what the game's all about, and so on. And, you know, now, forgive me for being cautiously optimistic about what Bethesda are promising here versus what reality may be, but, you know, it's Bethesda. But we all know the fucking age-old Bethesda RPG scenario. You pay for the ticket, you take the ride. When these games come out, they are a fucking mess. Yet against all the imperfections and jank and they're always so fucking good. Especially Skyrim, which just so happens to be the same team that is building Starfield. So yeah, whilst I'm being cautiously optimistic about what this game's going to offer, I'm also extremely fucking excited. Painfully excited. But the recent showing that we got at the Xbox Bethesda showcase, there was a few red flags, and it wasn't just the things that were said or shown, it's also the things that were absent from the trailer. So that being said, today I'm gonna kind of address those concerns, and we're gonna go over a few things that we really want to see in Starfield based on the information that we now have. So the first one is solid gunplay. Okay, did anybody else notice this? The gunplay in the trailer just seemed a little off. Like, the guns just don't seem very satisfying to use. I'm just struggling to put my finger on exactly what it is. One of the things that I noticed is here, you see the guns, they don't seem to have any recoil at all. And here you can see the bullets are kind of firing off at an angle. Also, on more than one occasion, I noticed that the first couple of shots that hit enemies, they just didn't seem to react at all. Yeah, it just kind of looked really bland. Now, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. They've pushed this game back to the first half of 2023, which means, you know, realistically, we're looking at probably summer 2023. So we're about a year out from the release of this game, so there's still much work to be done here. But there are a few reasons why they really need to get this shit right. If you're a Fallout fan, you'll know, especially if you've gone back and played Fallout recently, the gunplay is pretty whack. So yeah, I went back and played Fallout 4 recently, and I still enjoyed it. It's a great game, it's a fantastic RPG, but I had one of those moments where you kind of realize how far gaming has come on in that period of time. The game's like 7 years old now, and I went back and it felt 7 years old. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I remember it playing better than this. Now, even back in 2015, 7 years ago now, Fallout 4's gunplay wasn't as polished as other shooters of the time, but it's Fallout, right? It has the VAT system and the fucking characters and dialogue choices. It's an insanely quirky and brilliant rendition of a post-apocalyptic world. What I'm saying is, the gunplay, whilst important, doesn't define Fallout 4's experience. Now, the same will probably be said about Starfield when that comes out, but based on what we've seen, this game seems like it's going to be the most gunplay focused Bethesda RPG that we've ever seen. So, you know, with that being the case, we really need the gunplay to feel tight, to feel responsive, and to be fun to play, because it's going to be a large portion of the Starfield experience. But, you know, it's fine. They're on a new engine. It's going to have been 8 years since Fallout 4 when the game comes out. I'm sure that they've stepped up the gunplay. Fast forward to 2018 though, Fallout 76 hit the shelves, and the gunplay is still whack. Maybe even worse than Fallout 4. Anyway, now I'm starting to sweat. Literally, it's fucking boiling in this room. What the fuck? But you know what? It's fine. I'm still confident. And then it smashes me in the face like a ton of bricks. What does this gunplay remind me of? It reminds me of Cyberpunk 2077. Oh no. I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't care how many improvements people think have been made to Cyberpunk 2077. The gunplay in that game is fucking awful. The enemies are just so insanely spongy, and that's what defined the difficulty. There were all these deep RPG elements based around the gunplay and based around the weapons, but they just didn't translate well at all. They basically didn't mean anything to the wider game. Bethesda need to take a close look at Cyberpunk and really evaluate hard all the shit that they did wrong. And I have every faith that this will be the case, but I'm just throwing that out there now. If this game comes out and it plays like Cyberpunk, well, I saw it coming. Next up was the amount of planets in the game. Okay, this was the biggest and most concerning red flag for me, because aside from anything else, I feel like Bethesda just really have not read the room here. Back in 2016, that was the thing to do. It was all the rage. How big can we make our open world? And so came the onslaught of open world games that were fucking huge and fucking empty. Lifeless, boring worlds with nothing to do. None more so than the very game that Starfield seemed to have, shall we say, borrowed heavily some inspiration from in No Man's Sky. That game has like literally endless explorable planets, and they're all bollocks. They're all barren, empty bollocks. And even after all the great work that they've done to turn No Man's Sky into a game that has a cult following now and people really enjoy it, it's still mostly nothing. Most of the game is just nothing. So the announcement that Starfield is going to have over 1,000 planets for you to explore at free will is essentially, to me, the same as saying this game is going to be mostly nothing. Now, based on all of that, you know, over 1,000 planets and so on, if we're really, really lucky, there's going to be like 20% of the game that's going to have real, tangible things to do. So cities to explore, factions, civilizations, things like that. You know, probably over 80% of the game is just going to be procedurally generated emptiness. That's just a fact that we are going to have to accept. There's just absolutely no way that they can create 1,000 planets that are all going to be interesting to visit. I know that now. So I'm not sitting here and saying, if you're going to put 1,000 planets in it, you have to make every single one of them interesting, because it's just not going to be the case. The game would be fucking just impossibly large. Now, what I am saying is that each one of those planets need to be meaningful to explore to some degree. Means there has to be structures that feel good to explore, Easter eggs, collectibles. They're going to be so important, things that are just scattered around this universe that they're creating, so that there isn't planets that you can just land on and just think this was an entire waste of my time. Like, there's nothing good here, there's nothing to see here. Let this be a classic RPG progression system where I'm eased into the situation, so there's a certain finite amount of planets that I can explore at the beginning, and as I progress I'm able to go to new areas and discover new things and go travel to more hostile planets and things like that. That's the way that they will keep this interesting and not just immediately overwhelm players. But yeah, the whole look how big this open world we've made for you is, it's just not that much of an appealing selling point anymore, and it surprises me that Bethesda haven't cottoned onto that and have still decided to go down that route and use it as a selling point. We've had our boots filled with huge open worlds, and most of them are shit. And then you look at games like Elden Ring that came out this year, which, you know, by no standard is that the biggest open world we've ever seen, but it is just cram-packed from top to bottom with things to do, and people are still playing it now because that's how you make a brilliant, brilliant open world. So in going down that route, Bethesda have given themselves the difficult task of making every single one of those planets worthwhile visiting to some degree. If it's not worth visiting, then why put it in the game? If there's no point it being there, then why the fuck's it there? Next up is meaningful and world-affecting dialogue choices. One thing that we didn't see, which I am 100% certain is going to be in the game, is dialogue choices. While they haven't expressly confirmed dialogue choices, it was confirmed in an interview with lead quest designer Will Shen that there are more than 150,000 lines of dialogue in the game, which is double the amount in Skyrim. So yeah, there are going to be dialogue choices. It just wouldn't be a Bethesda RPG without them. But what we really want is the most meaningful and important dialogue choices in any Bethesda RPG to date. I'm talking about changes that will have a tangible effect on the game's world or worlds. Like if we're going astronomical with the game, like literally spreading an RPG out across a miniature universe, then you better believe that I want world-affecting dialogue on the same scale. I'm talking turning whole factions for or against you, making you a hero on some planets and a bounty on others. Dialogue choices that literally affect the way that you're interacted with. Are you someone to be trusted? Are you someone to be feared? Are you approachable, loved, hated? Dialogue choices that are meaningful and choices that are genuinely difficult to make. We don't just want reams and reams of vanilla choices, 3 different options all saying the same thing but in a different tone, or one obviously good and one obviously bad option. I want real choices that are going to pull on my heartstrings and really put my morality into question. Sometimes choices are costly no matter the outcome, and those are the kind of choices that I want to see in Starfield. As we all know, dialogue choices aren't anything new in Bethesda titles, but it's time that they upped to the ante with them and made them even more significant to the way the games play out. We're now firmly into the 9th generation of video game consoles, and it's high time we started seeing some games that live up to that reputation. I want to start seeing games that do shit that others before it haven't. That's what Fallout 3 did when that came out. That's what Skyrim did when that came out, and that is what I want to see from Starfield as well. So the last one is companions. Now, we know that we're getting companions in the game. The first thing that we saw was this cheeky chappy. This is Vasco, and he is one of what will hopefully be many companions in Starfield. Companions are nothing new in Bethesda games, but this time we want to see them step it up, both in terms of customization and gameplay. Starfield is set in the year 2330. Interstellar space travel has been achieved, interplanetary colonization has been achieved. Clearly, resources can be mined at the atomic level using lasers. So the only limits to the technology that could exist in this game is in the minds of the creators. And the companions are the perfect place to display some of these quirky and out there technologies. I'd like to see the customization of these companions be much deeper than just on the aesthetic level. Much more than just somebody to help shoot enemies and find items. Something that makes the player really consider which companion should be brought with them on a mission, and or which abilities their companion should be carrying. Making the companion mechanic something much closer to the JRPG trope of party building. Do I need a healer with me or a tank? Do I need a resource specialist or a locksmith? But not just that, I'm talking about considering the party member and their loadout on a much deeper level, kind of like the materia system from Final Fantasy VII or the microchip system from Nier Automata. And look, we touched on earlier the fact that there's a good probability that there's going to be literally hundreds of barren worlds in this game for you to explore, which would have a smart mind assume that mining and resourcing is going to play a fundamental part in this game. Now, obviously, mining materials for your ship and for your weapons is a no-brainer. That's going to be a thing. But also, it's nothing new. It's something we've seen 1,000 times over in 1,000 different games. But what about traveling to planets to mine for lost technologies from dead civilizations, or even technologies that are being gatekept by current civilizations? Technologies that you can use to improve your robotic companions. That's the kind of level of depth that I want to see them implement into Starfield for the companions. Anyway, we're still about a year away from the release of Starfield, so there'll be plenty more information between now and then. I just wanted to give my early and initial thoughts on those kind of semi-red flags that I picked up on during that trailer. It's great to be back, even though I'm absolutely sweating buckets. I am going to go stand outside for 10 minutes now, but thank you so much for your continued support. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.